Yes, is the gentleman, Dmetrius. Welcome.
Okay, I have to start off by saying that I have, Nancy, here's an I've been a guest general evaluator at other clubs, but I have to say this one is the most difficult because the other clubs that I've been a general evaluator at were in Switzerland, where the format is pretty much the same, and so it's easy to evaluate. Your format is so much different, so much more different than Switzerland, and one of the challenges in evaluating other clubs is that you tend to evaluate from the perspective of your club, which is never more right or more or less right. It's just a different form. So some of the comments that I make is going to be from the mindset of the Zurichberg Club and not necessarily in general. Okay. So I'm going to start. One of the roles of the general evaluator is to evaluate not just some of the evaluators themselves, but also to evaluate the overall operation of the club for that particular evening, basically on how it flowed and whether people are collecting stuff with it. So it just evaluates the overall operation. You know, so I want to start pretty much from the high and then like kind of sort of work into the individual evaluation themselves. Being a guest here, I like both last week and this week how every time guests come in, there's at least 2 or 3 people there at the door to greet them, you know, engagement, a little bit of conversation, find out a little bit about them. And I think that's really good because it's one way of definitely welcoming new people into the club, making them feel wanted, making them feel like they are part of the family, or you want them to be part of the family. And I think that's really good. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the individual evaluators and the overall reporters, and then I'll go into other little aspects of the club as well. I want to start with Charlie. Charlie, the biggest thing, know your role so that you don't volunteer for something you're supposed to evaluate. It's really critical to do that, and you already know that, so I'm not going to go any further. Also, one of the things you should do when you're evaluating the table topics as a whole is also evaluate the table topics master, you know, on whether or not they are giving people enough information when they ask their questions, because usually they should ask the question before they either nominate someone, or in this case people volunteer, before they allow the person who's volunteering to come up. They should ask the question and make sure it's clear to them. Pace, and well, I'll talk to you a little later. You say it. I like the way in the beginning, you got the audience to acknowledge the speaker you were evaluating, which is really good because this is her first speech, and it gave the audience a chance to really, you know, appreciate her for actually stepping up and doing her first speech. So that's a really good thing you did. Another thing too, when you were evaluating her, you tend to stand over here and look at the audience out here. When you're evaluating a speaker, it really helps to address the speaker because you are giving them feedback on what they're doing and a little bit and a few tips on how they can actually improve. So it helps to really be closer to them, sort of address them. Let's see. You also gave her some really good examples on her body language on how she could actually improve them. And if there's one thing that I could give you as far as a suggestion too is there is on one part on a couple parts she said I'm going to comment on this, I'm going to comment on that. You really don't need to preface it as such. Just give her the comment and let it be that. Okay, so that was it. Sam, where are you? Sam. You changed it? Okay. Sam, I'll put this. It doesn't matter how cold, how analytical, how different, or what you are. It was an emotional speech. You should be able to evaluate. You should be able to twist off that cold and different hat. I think we all have a little aspect of it in our personality, and really step into the role so you can actually give her the most qualified feedback as possible. But I have to say, and I shouldn't have said but, excuse me, when you did actually say something, when you did actually speak up, you did what? You did give her some pretty good feedback on what she did and what she said within the speech. So I think from your perspective, it was more of I think it was a psychological thing. You know, you're thinking that you're too cold and that you can't, you know, let your heart out a little bit and get into will be able to. So, give yourself a little bit more credit. That would be my biggest suggestion. Paul. He left. Doggone it. Well, the one thing I was going to say about Paul is that he did a good job in picking up on, or rather, good job in advising her on how she could actually fill in certain gaps, rather the time gap that she had left, instead of just asking questions and just like letting it go, and then moving on, actually engaging a little bit more. So he gave her a few little suggestions there. I like towards the end where he gave her suggestions on how to improve the speech, and that is really addressing the appropriateness of her examples, and that's really critical for every speech, because in all of our speeches we tend to give examples or metaphors or whatever like that, and that's a filler, like an we tend to give have those metaphors in our speech, but sometimes we don't necessarily connect them to the message or the meaning or the objective or the motive in the speech itself. So he did a great job in doing that. As far as the official reporters, let's see. Actually, you guys did a good job, so I'm not going to have any comments there. Oh, Clive, don't apologize for being you. Okay? I mean, if you're very critical, if you're very direct and very honest, just be that way and give your feedback. Don't apologize for it. A couple comments that I wanted to make about, to the Toastmaster of the evening. I think one thing, you introduced all the other evaluators, you should also introduce the general evaluator in the beginning as well, so the general evaluator can talk about what they're going to be doing towards the end. And again, like I said earlier, my feedback is going to be from the perspective of what I have been part of, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong or right, it's just a different way that I'm used to seeing. Okay, so that might help. I don't know if it would or wouldn't, but it might help. Another thing too is I like the way you gave a lot of post-speech commentary. Everyone who came up and they gave their speech, they had something that was really powerful within the speech. And you did a good job of actually highlighting that and sort of expanding on it, maybe from your own perspective, giving your own opinion. That's really good because it adds a little bit of value to the overall program. So great job in that. Let's see. During the 1 minute of silence where everyone is filling out the evaluations, just a suggestion, maybe remain up here because as a Toastmaster of the evening, this is your meeting. So you should maintain sort of like a managerial presence or leadership presence of the meeting instead of going back to your chair like you did quite a few times. So just a suggestion. Let's see. And this is more of sort of a heartfelt comment too. I like the way, I'm probably going to blow past my 10 minutes, so you can just put that down. I like the way when, after Cherry's speech, and even when you introduced her evaluator, it's easy to see the emotion that you felt in the speech, how strongly the speech touched you, and it's really, it is nice to see that, in the TME. Now, I do want to make a couple comments on some of the speakers, if I may. And Elaine, I wanted to give you congratulations for completing your first speech. I mean, it's a great job. And you'll find out once you get the first one done, the rest are so easy. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Cherry, 2 comments on yours. One of the things I liked about your speech was, I don't know if you're probably familiar with things like, you're probably familiar with the term pacing and leading. There is this sort of like a hypnotic way that people speak or tell a story or give a presentation that is sort of like you're pacing the audience and then you're leading them in a direction that you want them to go. You lead them to a certain emotion that you want them to have. That was one of the things I got from your speech there. You did a great job with that. I don't know if you intentionally did it that way, but if you didn't intentionally do it, you have a gift that you have no clue how powerful it is. So just wanted to let you know that. Let's see here. And also, and C. I have this, I wasn't quite sure where your speech began, to be quite honest. I'm thinking that when the opening dialogue portion of your speech, I think it might have served you better if the person introducing you would have sort of laid the groundwork for that, and then you just go into your examples or the dialogue that you had with Charlie. You know, that might have made it a little bit better, or just made it a little more powerful from my perspective. And let's see. Oh, I said I was going to blow past one. This is my stage now, so get out of the way. Let's see here. And this sort of, that also, the part about the introduction, maybe your speech would have been better served by having someone introduce you. It sort of leads me to another point where this is just one of my thinking out loud kind of things. I'm curious if one thing that could work would be all the evaluators who evaluating the speakers would introduce the speakers themselves. And what this could potentially do is, not only are they introducing the objective of the speech itself, but it also gives that person the opportunity to introduce the goal of the speaker. Because we are all professional speakers, but we're not the Toastmasters manual. It may have one objective of achieving these particular goals within the manual itself, but each one of our speeches, we want people to walk away with a certain type of a message. And sometimes having your evaluator introduce you, say, so-and-so is going to give a speech titled ABCXYZ, this is what they're hoping you get from it at the end of the program, et cetera, et cetera. It helps you to also evaluate a little bit better. So did that person achieve their goal of helping me like more green tomatoes than I do red tomatoes or whatever? You know, if they did, then you would actually put that down on the evaluation sheet. If they didn't, then you could also evaluate it from that perspective too. Again, it's just one of my thinking out loud kind of things. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was our table topic master. Let's see. That was you. There you go. Again, a comment that I made to Charlie, when you're asking questions, and even if people volunteer or you select them, finish your question first, and then allow them to come up, because then it just gives them a little bit chance to think. So that's one good point. And if I do have a comment forward on table topics too, a strategy because table topics is very challenging for a lot of people. You get up here, you're asked to speak impromptu, et cetera, and sometimes you're here, you're like, One way of sort of like stalling that a little bit, or dragging it out, or giving yourself a little bit of time to think, is repeating back the question, because it's sort of like it gets your mind going a little bit, and helps you to formulate your answer or your story or whatever you're going to say up here during that 2 or 3 minute time period. So that was my very, very long evaluation. Overall, I like this club. You guys have a lot of energy, and I also like the way, I think this is very unique. I've never seen this at another club, where even in your speeches, you have sort of a give and take back and forth with the audience. You know, I see people, they ask questions within their speech, and someone in the audience raise their hand or say something back. You know, I like that. I mean, it's fun. I've never seen that at any other club. Most clubs are, you sit up here, you give your speech, and the people down there, they're on autobahn or whatever. You know, so I think this is fun. So that's it for me, Madam Toastmaster.